In this video, I will show how to solve a vertical equation. And first, let me remind you that to solve a vertical equation, we have to isolate a vertical expression and then raise both sides to the appropriate power. So in this case, we have two vertical expressions, but presence of either one of them will, that's what makes this equation a vertical. So it doesn't matter which vertical we'll isolate. So let's isolate the easiest one. So let's just add the square root of w minus 2 to both sides. And as a result, we have square root of 4w plus 1 equals to square root of w minus 2 plus 3. The next step is to square both sides. Why square? Because we have a square root. So to clear that vertical, we have to square both sides. The left-hand side then becomes 4w plus 1. However, the right-hand side has to be computed. And to square the square root of w minus 2 plus 3, I'm going to do the following. So I'm just going to multiply it carefully. So square root of w3 squared is just w plus 3. Square root of w plus 3 times 3 is just 3 square root w plus 3. Same over here. And 3 times 3 is 9. So the square of that sum is going to be w. Actually, it's w minus 2 here. I made a typo. So it's w minus 2 plus 6 square root of w minus 2 plus 9. As a result, we got another equation, which happened to be radical again. And how do we solve radical equations? We isolate a radical expression and then we raise both sides to the appropriate power. So in this case, I'm going to isolate this vertical expression. And to do so, I have to subtract w, add 2, and subtract 9 from both sides. So I have to subtract w, add 2, and subtract 9 from both sides. As a result, on the left-hand side, I have 3w. 1 plus 2 minus 9 is actually negative 6. And on the right-hand side, I have 6 square root of w minus 2. Next, it says, if we follow the method, we would have to divide everything by 6. However, I'm just going to divide everything by 3. And this is so we can avoid dealing with fractions. So the presence of 2 here is not that big of a deal, and it's totally worth having it here just so we can avoid dealing with fractions and then squaring fractions. Now, without isolating the square root completely, we can still square both sides. And we just have to be careful with distributing the power over the product. So on the left hand side, we have w squared minus 4w plus 4. On the right side, so I'm going to work it out here. On the right side, the square has to be distributed to each factor in the product. So we square 2 and we square the radical separately. So squaring the right hand side will give us 4 times w minus 2. And as a result, we don't have a vertical equation anymore. We just have a quadratic equation, or what appears to be a quadratic equation. And to solve it, we have to write it in standard form first. So let's distribute 4. And let's subtract 4w from both sides and add 8 to both sides. As a result, we have a simple quadratic equation which can be solved by factoring. So w equals 2 or w equals 6. However, since we're solving a radical equation, we always have to check for extraneous solutions. So let's check w equals 2. The easiest way to check is to plug it back into the original equation and see if the right hand side equals to the left hand side, or in other words, if equation turns into a true statement. Square root of 9 is 3, 3 minus 0 is 3, so it checks off. Let's also check w equals 6. Square root of 4 times 6 plus 1 minus square root of 6 minus 2. Is that equal to 3? Let's find out. Square root of 4 times 6 plus 1 is 5. Square root of 6 minus 2 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So 5 minus 2 is also 3. So it also checks off. So this equation has two solutions, 2 and 6.